members, we barely have quorum. Let's... Okay, members of council, will call this meeting to order. Councillor Moyes, on EX 17.17, you have a technical amendment so we can release the item?
Yes, we can, Madam Speaker. If you want to put it on the screen, it's just to keep the confidential, pretty much.
We'll put the technical, okay, there it is on the screen. The technical amendment.
Okay.
On the amendment, on favor, carried. Item is amended, on favor, carried. Click, we opened up your item that you want to put an amendment through on MM 2232.
Yeah, it's a technical amendment just to correct the accounting for where the Section 37 is going to be drawn from.
Clause is amended, carried. So, are there any quick items now? Councillor Ainslie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. MM 2218, enhancing senior registration. I've worked on amending the recommendations with the mayor, and this is all about looking at making it easier for seniors to register for recreation programming. So I've worked on amendments with the mayor, so I'd like to move that.
Okay, so on MM 22.18, Councillor Ainslie has an amendment. On favor of the amendment? Carried. Item is amended. Carried. Thank you. Next. Councillor Candeval.
The amendments are, if they can be displayed, this was, I guess, a negotiation with, I thank staff and the applicant for this resolution.
Yeah, this is on item SC 16.1565 Kennedy Road?
Yes,
Okay.
and appreciate staff's work, the applicants. This is part of a bigger discussion in the suburbs of getting sufficient parking with new development applications. And this is something not thrilling for the community, but a reasonable improvement.
Okay, so on that item, which is the SC 16.1, it's here without a recommendation, and Councillor Candeval has his motion on the screen. Is everyone okay with that one? Okay. All in favor? Carried. Item B? Okay, and on motion B, Councillor Candeval? On favor? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Carroll?
This evening.
I don't know. I see Councillor Bradford and Councillor Morley
The
and-
reason I ask is
and
we are in the
Councillor
final.
Mantis on the screen.
Yes, we are in the final extension of the meeting, and she's holding an item that I think Councillor Pasternak and I should be familiar with, to do with 461 Shepherd Avenue East. But as we're in the final section of the meeting, I'd be happy to put it on the table.
So you want
Councillor
to?
Carroll, I am here.
Oh, here she is.
I am
Here she is.
online.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I
No, but
I
is
can,
this a quick
Yeah,
item?
It's
It is.
Councillor
It's a
Chang's
technical
hold.
amendment.
I thought she was absent, and in her absence, I was going to table it.
Okay,
It turns
so-
out she's not absent.
Okay, so it's not a quick item.
Yes.
Councillor
it is a
McKelvey?
quick item
quick
because
item?
it's a technical amendment.
Councillor McKelvey?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 22.9, I pre-circulated a motion deleting and replacing number 2. We can quick release these.
So on MM 22.9, protecting community health, you have an amendment on that, Councillor McKelvey?
Yeah.
Okay, if we can put the amendment on the screen.
So it is deleting recommendation 2 and replacing it with a new recommendation that does say to include, but with demonstrated outcomes and neighborhood and operational safety plans.
Okay, on the amendment by Councillor McKelvey, on favor? Okay, carried. Recorded vote. Pardon?
Councillor Chang hasn't put her name on the portal, but it is actually a quick release. She was trying to get your attention. I don't know why she hadn't put her name on the list.
Okay, I'll get to
You may
her.
want to go to her.
I'll
Yeah,
get to her.
Yeah.
I did. It's Councillor Morley, Councillor Bradford, Councillor Mantis, and Councillor
Chang.
Burnside.
And Councillor
I
Chang.
don't see Councillor Chang there.
I don't think she's logged on to the portal, but she's trying to get your attention.
Yeah, but until we can see her. Okay, we're in the middle of a vote right now.
Yeah. Right, right.
Motion 1 carries. The vote is 18-2.
Okay, item is amended. On favor? Recorded vote.
Councillor Crisanti, please.
The item is amended, carries. The vote is 18-3.
Okay, next. Councillor Holiday, quick release.
Thank you, Speaker. If you bear with me while I find it. TE 16-20 Corridor Safety Review, Mortimer Avenue, between Pape Avenue and Broadview Avenue. Thank you to the staff for sending some answers to my questions.
You're releasing T 16.20?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So on T 16.20, Councillor Holiday is released. On favor, carried. Oh, Councillor McKelvey?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Apologies, I got kicked out of the portal. If I can have just a short amount of time to speak, I can release 22.14, solve crisis.
Okay, that's MM 22.14. Okay, Councillor McKelvey is releasing. On favor?
Oh, I just wanted to speak to it quickly, I asked.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's time to solve the crisis of homelessness, mental health, and addiction in our great city. And it's clear that the status quo is not working. It's not working for individuals suffering from mental health crises, suffering from addiction, and suffering from homelessness. It's not working for the families that care about them, and it's not working for our communities. And I just wanted to share the numbers in Toronto because they really are astounding. In August, we had 431 encampments in our city. Over 12,000 people are in our shelter system, and we turn away more than 200 people every day. In the first 5 months of this year, Toronto saw over 500 opioid deaths. That's 100 deaths per month. And last year, police brought more than 12,000 people to hospital under the Mental Health Act. That's 1,000 apprehensions per month. We see the impact on our first responders and in our emergency rooms. Paramedic response times have increased by 14% in recent years, and 60% of paramedics' time is now spent in hospital waiting to transfer patients. Similarly, the average time for Toronto Police to transfer a mental health patient is 2 hours, and this time spent in hospital is the equivalent of 20 FTEs per year. The number of police injuries is at an all-time high. 555 officers were injured while performing their duties this year as of September. Our first responders are doing their part, and we need to do our part by advocating for more investment in homelessness, mental health, and addiction. That's why today we are calling on Toronto Council and Toronto to declare their support for the Ontario Big City Mayor's Solve the Crisis campaign that asks the province of Ontario to appoint a single minister to address the full spectrum of housing needs as well as mental health and addictions, strike a task force with stakeholders to develop a Made in Ontario action plan, provide municipalities with the tools and supports they need to help those in encampments, commit to funding the appropriate services individuals need, and invest in 24/7 community hubs and crisis centers. Ontario cities have been left to deal with this crisis without adequate support. And even though mental health, addiction, and housing are provincial responsibilities. I would like to thank Mayor Olivia Chow for supporting the motion, and I want to thank Mayor Mead Ward of Burlington and Mayor Morgan of London for their leadership at OBCM and for creating this campaign. Please take a moment to visit the website, solvethecrisis.ca, to join the advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKelvey. On the motion, on favor, recorded vote.
The item carries unanimously, 22 in favor.
Thank you. Councillor Cheng.
Yes, I'm sorry for the kerfuffle. I was in transit from my daughter's school event. I want to do a quick release of NY 17.27. There's a technical amendment.
So you're releasing NY 17.27?
With an amendment.
Is there an
There's a
amendment? Okay, if we can put the amendment on the screen.
So we're just replacing the language. This was drafted by staff.
Okay, on the amendment by Councillor Cheng, it's on the screen. On favor, carried. Item is amended. On favor, carried.
Thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Malik, MM 2235, your motion for Richmond Street, Ambassador Street that we introduced earlier. Do you just want to move that? Okay, MM 22.35. Maybe we put the motion on the screen. Okay, just so people remember that we introduced it. There it is. On favor, carried. MM 22.36, if we can put them all. Which one, Deputy Mayor Malik's motion? Oh, is that the ones that we reopened earlier? Oh, okay. So, motion to reopen first, on favor, carried. On the item, as amended, on favor, carried. So, MM 22.36, if we can put that motion on the screen, and Councillor Perruzza, if you want to move it once you see it on the screen. That's your motion that you introduced earlier. Okay, there it is on the screen.
Staff, which is just really changing without to with, so when they rewrote it, they missed this word, and it changes the composition of the motion apparently. So without to with, and you can strike entire. So it's. Sorry?
Have you given that amendment to the staff?
Yes. Right there.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's right there, it's right there.
Okay, there it is on the
So I
screen.
need to move that amendment to the motion before I move the motion.
Okay, on the amendment, on favor, carried. Item is amended, on favor, carried. MM 22.37, Councillor Cheng, It's, do you want to just move that? That's section 37 for 5220 Yonge
Amendment.
Street?
Yes, I do, please.
Okay, we'll put the motion on the screen and then we'll move it.
The staff had written it in a negative format.
I should shut it off. He's got a loud voice. It sounds like his mic is on. Okay, there it is on the screen. Okay. This is the motion by Councillor Cheng. On favor? Carried. Okay, PH 15.5, 2023-2024 Annual Progress Update Report. Councillor Perks, you held the item down. Do you have questions?
No.
No? Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay, Councillor Perks, did you want to speak on it?
I'll speak last on the item as chair.
I don't see anybody else's name on it.
Okay, if this is their shot.
You're the only one.
Okay. Members, it's been a long and difficult meeting, but I think it's important that we take a moment to acknowledge something we've done that's really remarkable. Many people out there in the city of Toronto, including one or two on this council, one who's not even here, like to say that we're not making any progress on housing. We're very busy and we don't all have time to read reports. I just want to pick a few highlights out of the incredible work that we as a council and the Toronto Public Service, people in the not-for-profit world, people in our agencies have done this year. If you read the report, you will see that just last year, we approved over 30,000 new units of housing. That's Aurelia. We did that in 1 year. And that enabled us to exceed the provincial goal for how much housing we're supposed to build in a decade by 50%. We're building. We approved over 1,500 rent-controlled affordable and RGI units. That's this year, last year rather. We opened nearly 1,000 new affordable and supportive homes. We secured 368 units through MURA. MURA, a program created as a pilot program in the City of Toronto, which has since become a national program, housing people or protecting housing for people right across the country. We invested $350 million in the capital program for the Toronto Community Housing Corporation, improving the quality of life for countless tenants. We used our rental replacement powers to secure almost 1,800 units permanently. We allocated $61 million in tenant supports. That's 640 people benefiting from the EPIC program, 1,600 people benefiting from the rent program, 3,800 people benefiting from the Toronto Tenant Support Program, 3,300 people getting Canada-Ontario housing benefits to get into permanent housing. The City of Toronto last year helped 6,000 people who were homeless move into permanent homes. We took 1,350 people who were on the waiting list for social housing in the City of Toronto off that waiting list and got them into social housing in secure homes. And I want to talk to you about one particular program. The mayor and I were at Project, the mayor and I were out celebrating just over a week ago. It's called Dunn House. Dunn House fulfills a 50-year promise the federal government made to recognize that housing is medicine. 50 years ago, the government of Canada was advised, housing is medicine, you should invest in housing to help people's health. What Dunn House does, well, before I tell you what it does, a little figure you might want to know. 100 individuals in the City of Toronto make 4,000 visits to emergency rooms. These are people whose lives are in disarray, who are in crisis, who have been failed by the system. And they are consuming enormous amounts of public resources sitting in an emergency room because they do not have a home. What Dunn House does is take 51 people
who are frequent users of emergency services, some of them Indigenous, and give them permanent homes with medical, psychological, dietary, and social supports on site. There were people there representing a whole range of institutions, and I want to note that this was a public-public partnership between the University Health Network and the City of Toronto with support from the UHN, the federal government, and the provincial government. A lot of people say we're not doing enough, and that's true. Some people say we're not doing anything, and that's not true. The City of Toronto made lives better for over 100,000 people with better housing just in the last year. Let's take a moment and think about the hard work we do and the hard work the Toronto Public Service does. Many of the people who do the work to deliver these programs are here, and I'd like to ask you all to join me in giving them a round of applause.
Thank you. So on the item, recorded vote.
The item carries unanimously, 22 in favor.
Thank you. Our next item is TE 1656, Liberty Village Traffic Action Plan. Deputy Mayor Malik, you held it. It's here without a recommendation.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I'd just like to speak to the item.
But are you going to move a motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Speaking to the item.
Move your motion.
Thank you very much. First, I do have a motion, and it has been advance circulated. And the motion has 9 recommendations to improve the implementation, the iteration, and the reporting on the Liberty Village Traffic Action Plan through working with transportation services, with direction to expedite design coordination of new Liberty Street, install traffic agents, increase community engagement, and report back on data collection and monitoring. It also requests city departments and organizations such as the Film Office, Toronto Water, Toronto Planning, through development applications, as well as partners such as Metrolinx and their contractors, work within the framework of the Liberty Village Traffic Action Plan. And as I've mentioned here before, the issues of congestion and traffic in Liberty Village are a result of planning decisions that go back several decades. And the community there over the years has a really high threshold when it comes to inconvenience and what the expectations are when it comes to traffic and getting around the neighborhood. And when I requested this dedicated Liberty Village Traffic Action Plan in July to move quickly on finding solutions, the situation was at a critical point. Liberty Village experienced significant congestion challenges that were exacerbated by the ongoing work on the Gardner, the closure of King Street, and more. And this was combined with the start of a season of big summer events, many of them annual, happening in the neighborhood and at nearby Exhibition Place. And thank you to transportation staff for all your hard work on this. Working together with my office and the community, we've been able to see some meaningful improvements over the last few months and to set us up to build on that with this plan. And as laid out in the report, from the immediate actions we took, we've seen deployment of traffic agents to support traffic management during the busy summer months, especially with events like the CNE. With focused efforts of workers and advocacy, we were able to reopen King Street 10 weeks sooner than expected. which helped significantly and brought back TTC service earlier just this past weekend, and installing new cameras at key intersections. This hard work resulted in 50 to 67% reduction in wait times at key intersections, and that was just from the immediate measures that were taken, and that's just a start. My amendments today are aimed at ensuring that we're taking an iterative approach to this plan. We're prioritizing ongoing community engagement and feedback, taking it seriously, and that we're measuring our progress in a data-driven way, and that city divisions as well as agencies like Metrolinx, who we have to work with, are aligned with this plan every step of the way to ensure success for residents in the neighborhood, for the businesses there, and everyone who comes through Liberty Village. This levels up our work with the city coordinating better. We need our provincial partners to join us in this. That means increasing GO train service to Liberty Village, ensuring we are bringing new Liberty Street alongside the Ontario line, making a second street that would be going through this very important neighborhood, and most importantly for right now, that we are not making congestion worse as the Ontario line construction gets underway more seriously. We know that the Ontario line will be a transformational transit project that will benefit residents, and we learned from the recommendations of the Ontario Line subcommittee work from the past year and a bit that it needs to be done well and alongside residents in the interim. The current plan right now is not acceptable to move 300 to 400 dump trucks a day through the neighborhood of Liberty Village. I have been advocating alongside residents for Metrolinx to seriously consider real alternatives to this route, and over 600 Liberty Village residents have signed a petition in a very short time period asking for the same thing, and that number of advocates is growing every day. And I want to thank city staff for their hard work. We have stayed in contact, trying to secure traffic agents for events, iterating new measures, and making sure that the difference is being felt and experienced in that neighborhood and everyone who is coming through the area. And I want to give a special thanks to the leadership of the Liberty Village Residents Association, the Liberty Village Business Improvement Association, and to residents of Liberty Village themselves who have shared their reflections, their frustrations, and their ideas for better with me. We had hundreds and hundreds of responses to the survey that I released earlier in the summer, and even more conversations that have informed this plan and that will continue to. I'm looking forward to keep working together to implement this important plan and make sure that it's responsive to community needs and they can see the progress that we're accomplishing together.
Thank you. On the motion, on favor, carried. Okay, T 16.75, Councillor Fletcher, you held it down, and then we're almost done. Councillor Fletcher?
Thank you. I just have a few questions of staff. Sorry, which one are we on?
We're on the last item.
Yep. Right, not on my screen.
Pardon?
I still have quick releases on my screen. Okay. This is to our chief planner. There we go. Thank you. The laneway suite and...
So are you asking questions now?
I am.
Okay.
I'm just going over the fact that we've had a laneway suite and garden suite bylaw for a number of years, and it's going along very well in most wards, correct?
Yes, we've had bylaws for both of those types of accessory dwelling units.
Can't hear you.
We've had bylaws that permit both of those kinds of accessory dwelling units. Laneway suites have been in place a bit longer than garden suites. We continue to monitor both of them.
Speaker, I think your mic is on because I can't hear Mr. Connect. So as far as, there's also something called through lots that are talked about in the garden suite. And earlier we talked, there's about 600, what's called a through lot that ends up on a street and is facing another houses on the other side, right? Out of how many in the city?
Through the speaker, yes. A through lot is a street that has frontage on one street and it extends all the way back so that its rear lot line is on another street. Roughly, based on past experiences, There are between 600 and 700
Thank
through
you.
lots in the Toronto and East York district.
And how many lots are there in the Toronto East York district in general?
Oh, a few 100,000. I mean, the two,
Hundreds, a couple of 100,000.
Yeah.
So there's 600. And on Craven Road that we're talking about, all the way from Hanson to Queen with Parkmount, there's probably about 100 of those 600 are on this little street, correct?
closer to 50, but a significant portion.
In that section, but the whole street, which are all three lots, all through lots, has about 100 and some, 125 actually, from Danforth to Queen, although that's not what we're talking about here today. Just talking about through lots, correct?
That's correct, Councillor. I'll say we counted about 50 lots on the shorter
On the
two-block
section
portion.
that's here in front of us, but the whole street, so that's 125. And so in this, this has been a difficult thing because I don't think anybody thought through lots were part of the garden suite, or is it a laneway suite? It was a bit confusing at the Committee of Adjustment, I believe, when this one application went there for everybody, the street, everybody.
I can't say whether the committee was confused. What I can say is community planning thought it made sense to submit an information report to the committee to make sure that they understood the distinction.
Understood the difference between laneway and garden. And so then I've made a motion to remove that. We had a meeting and basically the community and others thought that's a bit far. Can we please go back and have a look at what this should look like in this anomaly? Because it is an anomaly. Would you agree it's an anomaly situation, these 600 lots on these little streets? Basically in Toronto and East York.
I'm not sure I'd say anomaly, but I'd say it's a very uncommon situation, and each location is probably a bit different from every
Thank you. So I have a motion here that says, can we allow time for a review, mostly with the local residents? That's Parkmount, that's Craven. We'll look at any modification in case there is anything that needs to be done on this Craven, because the backyards also are having garden suites from Rhodes Avenue. It's a very different situation than you might find anywhere else in the city.
Through the chair, generally, yes.
So you just support that review and are willing to participate in that review and come forward with a resolve of some kind that would be planning to report back and say, here's what we think after that community conversation.
What I would say is that review will allow us to bring forward an evidence-based recommendation on whether there should be any changes to the garden suites bylaw in that very local area.
In that local location. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Bradford, questions?
Thanks, Madam Speaker. Through you to our chief planner. Would it be an unusual situation for there to be houses on both sides of a street?
Through the speaker, no, that's a quite common situation in most parts of the city.
Okay. Generally, do our city planning staff recommend adopting zoning bylaw permissions on an ad hoc basis on the floor of council related to, say, 50 lots?
Through the speaker, generally when we've brought forward zoning changes, and I'll reference particularly the Expanding Housing Options in Neighborhoods program, we've looked at the entire city and we've applied zoning amendments to the entire city in order to provide consistency for zoning permissions for new housing typologies that we want to see emerge. In our
so you brought that forward, and when did we legalize garden suites?
That permission came in 2022. Thank you.
February, that's right. And you said you looked at the entire city.
That's correct.
What about Ward 14 in Toronto Danforth? Did you look there?
Ward 14 and Toronto Danforth, that ward was part of our garden suites bylaws.
Do garden suites contribute to the City of Toronto's housing priorities?
City Council has indicated that there's an interest in expanding options in neighborhoods, and garden suites are part of that, and we're monitoring the take-up of that permission and looking at whether...
Oh, so this is EHON, the award-winning program that you just received accolades for a couple weeks back from Ontario Professional Planning Institute. Let me ask you this about EHON. If we were to create a blackout zone for this specific street, would you say that expands housing options or that removes housing options?
I would say, I would generally not recommend that that's a good approach to black out portions of the city.
Oh, interesting.
From permissions.
Okay, you wouldn't recommend it. Are there any other parts of the city where we've carved out exclusion zones where garden suite rules do not apply?
No, garden suite permissions apply across the city.
Oh, interesting. I remember actually when we adopted the garden suite bylaw, there was a lot of pushback from some neighborhoods who didn't want them in their backyard. Is that right?
Through the speaker, there was a wide range of feedback that was received at that time.
Was that feedback that you got? Yeah, some people didn't want it.
There were participants in the public process who were not supportive.
But we never banned a specific area. We never blacked out. We never pulled a single street out. And, you know, presumably the risk if we started doing that is others would want to see that happen as well. Is that a fair assumption?
As I've noted, we've applied the garden suites permission across the entire geography of the city.
Does Toronto Danforth, Ward 14, do they have existing performance standards for setbacks and heights of garden suites, or is it the Wild West in Ward 14?
There are existing performance standards for garden suites, and the standards that apply in Ward 14 are the same as those that apply in other parts of the city.
City planning's pretty busy these days, aren't you? We just heard about all the different things that you're working on, but there's still a lot of stuff that we need to do. If staff weren't spending dozens and hundreds of hours on the reports requested in this motion, would you be able to find other work for those members of your planning team to do?
There's an extensive list of work program requests made by City Council asking city planning staff, and I'll say the zoning team in particular, to look at ways to modernize and harmonize our zoning bylaws.
Oh, got it. Okay, last couple questions here. Did staff come up with this motion? Was this motion staff's idea?
Through the speaker, Councillor Fletcher has introduced this motion.
Oh, understood. And as of today, would you support as our chief planner and recommend removing garden suite permissions from this single street?
As I've noted, no, I would not recommend that. What this motion does is ask us to study on a localized basis whether there should be modifications to this performance.
Okay,
standards.
thank you very much, Madam Speaker. That's all my questions.
Cute. Oh, there's other people that put their names up. Councillor Holiday. Councillor Holiday, questions?
Thank you. They'll be brief, Madam Speaker. To the Chief Planner, I've had quite a few, I'm going to say quite a few, proportionally the number of garden suites in Ward 2 go through the Committee of Adjustment. And people have sought all sorts of variances, including incursions to the 45-degree angular plane. I just wondered if you could tell me about the process that planning uses to monitor this, because it's a new program.
Through the speaker, in fact, we reported an information report to Planning and Housing Committee earlier this year laying out what that process is.
Yep.
We've engaged a planning firm to do a thorough monitoring of the standards and where those standards have been varied and whether we need to consider modifying any of those standards on a citywide basis. At the time of that report, we'd only had about 100 building permits for garden suites issued, so we didn't feel like we had a large enough sample to do a thorough monitoring and make an informed set of recommendations. So as more permits are issued, we are examining those in order so that our consultant can make informed recommendations.
Do I remember correctly that Council's policy intent was that garden suites and laneway suites were intended to be subordinate to the main dwelling? They were smaller, essentially.
Through the speaker, that's correct, and in fact, that's represented in the standards of the bylaw, where there's a performance standard that the garden suite needs to be smaller than the main dwelling.
And also, you know, the garden suite or the laneway suite or the EHON program wasn't a vector for a clever investor, builder, or developer to basically sever a lot without actually going through the severance, right? To create two things that were originally one. It was kind of the policy basis of this.
I think I would take a more technical view of how to respond to that question, and in fact, severances are explicitly not allowed in our policies because we don't want to carve up the land in ways that our lots become not serviceable. and not
Right.
able to be redeveloped in the
There's
future.
physical reasons why we didn't divide the land, even though the folks didn't go through the final legal hurdle of creating a new entity, in the land registry office. You essentially didn't have two full households where there was one.
Through the speaker, generally, I'd say that's correct. The notion of a garden suite is that it's an accessory dwelling unit to the primary dwelling unit.
So the monitoring program is looking for these sorts of things. I remember a case in Ward 2 where there was a through lot, and believe it or not, the garden suite was permitted with a driveway and a garage and a whole front face to the new street. It was an infill house. But I don't remember if it was your advice, but somebody's advice at the time was, look, these anomalies are going to happen. That's why we have the monitoring program, to look for patterns, to concerns, and we'd come back and address them.
Through the speaker, I appreciate that example. My other observation I would make is that the nature of zoning is that it is a fairly blunt tool. It needs to apply to large areas of the city, and there will always be examples where the zoning bylaw doesn't perfectly predict or perfectly regulate development on a specific lot. That's one reason why the Committee of Adjustment exists, to deal with situations like that.
And then just very simply, council can expect your advice to come back at some point in the future if there are adjustments required to our bylaws around garden suites or laneway suites.
Through the speaker, that's correct, and I will anticipate that we'll bring a final report advising on the outcome of our monitoring program.
Thank you.
Thank you. If we can.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few questions on this item, and for clarity first, this motion is asking staff to consider a report or to direct a report?
Through the speaker, as I interpret the motion, it's asking staff to conduct a study in a local area of a portion of Craven Road in order to determine whether any modifications to the zoning standards there should be made based on the local circumstances.
Have we done this with any other road or geography in the city on this review? Councillor Perks, I'm asking staff.
With respect to garden suites, we've looked at those standards citywide.
Right. Have we looked at a certain location before, like this, in this direction?
We would have done case studies and understood how garden suites fit into different contexts in different parts of the city. We wouldn't have studied,
Have
we wouldn't have
as
studied
council,
every neighborhood.
has council asked to review a particular road in this manner?
I'm not aware of that.
I don't.
Apart from Craven Road.
Okay. Wouldn't planning staff know if a motion like this came before?
Generally, yes, but I'll just say I haven't done a thorough review of past motions to remind myself for certain, but I can't recall one.
Okay. Has there been a similar motion to do with multi-tenant housing or multiplexes to review a certain geography or road?
Generally, through the speaker, generally no. There has been a motion to study an area largely comprising Ward 23 with respect to more extensive permissions for multiplexes than council has adopted.
So there hasn't been one like this for any of the other unique housing options that we've approved over the years. Has there, what is the expected hours or time staff is expected on this review?
Through the speaker, we haven't laid out a detailed study work program to respond to this motion. So it's hard for me to give you a well-informed number of staff hours.
How many staff members would be dedicated to this enterprise?
Through the speaker, the study itself would be led by the Development Review Division with support from City Planning. I expect that there would be staff from both of those divisions working on the study. None of them would be doing that work as their full-time dedicated project. They would carry other files at the same time.
Okay, so we don't have an approximation of how many hours this would require, this study?
We haven't done that level of work program planning, no.
Would staff, Is staff supportive of this motion?
Through the Speaker, as I said, it would position us to bring forward evidence-based recommendations on whether any modifications to the bylaw are warranted. So we would, that would be positive in terms of addressing an issue in the ward. I would not say it would be the highest priority amongst other work program items that we have before us.
Understood, and that's the spirit in which I'm trying to understand, is the priority of this, if given approval, sets a precedent, and I think an important value of our democratic culture here is consistency, that if we accept this motion, that it does create a precedent for other councillors and other forms of housing to see a similar study undertaken.
Through the Speaker, councillors, of course, can make any motion asking city planning staff to look at particular areas. We would do that work in conjunction with our development.
No, I understand the ability to ask, but if we approve this, it would staff agree it creates that precedent to look at a specific geography in other forms of housing?
Through the Speaker, with respect, I think city councillors have to answer that question for themselves. As if they're the ones that would bring that type of motion forward. If they would feel inspired by this as a precedent, that could happen. I would not encourage councillors to think of it as a precedent, but of course, every councillor will have their own judgment on that.
But I think it's fair to say it is a precedent, is it not, given that we haven't had this before?
Yeah, last question.
Yeah, last question.
Through the Speaker, it's accurate to say this would be the first time that the request has been made of city planning staff.
Okay, thank you. Councillor. Okay, this is the last item. We can speed it up a bit. Councillor Perks, questions?
Thank you to the acting chief planner. Councillor Bradford asked you a question about whether Councillor Fletcher's motion meant doing work in a very specific area, and I believe you answered that yes?
Yes, the area that would be covered by this motion, by this study, is quite defined and quite limited.
Okay. Council adopted a while ago something called the Ward 19 pilot project. Is that an instance of City Council directing you to do work on an alternate form of housing in a specific geography?
Through the Speaker, that's not how I would characterize the Ward 19 pilot program. That's intended for staff to create a demonstration project of missing middle housing types in order to learn lessons of how missing middle housing can be better implemented.
Right, so it's a missing middle housing project, but it's not citywide, it's in a specific geography, one specific place, right?
The direction was to look specifically at the geography of Ward 19 in order to find a pilot project opportunity.
Okay. Next, Councillor Bradford asked you about whether it takes staff time to do would it take staff time to do the work that Councillor Fletcher is asking you to do? And you answered yes, it would.
That's correct.
Yes. Is it taking staff time to do the Ward 19 pilot project?
Yes, it does take staff time. There's a team of staff assigned to that, as well as staff from Create TO, and we report out periodically to the Planning and Housing Committee on the progress on that project.
Councillor Bradford also asked you if Councillor Fletcher's motion came as a staff recommendation or whether it came as a motion from a councillor, and you answered yes, correct?
That's correct.
The Ward 19 pilot project came as a motion from a councillor, not as a recommendation from city staff, correct?
That's my recollection, yes.
So Councillor Bradford was asking, is something Councillor Fletcher is doing, creating specific rules in a specific geography, costing staff time, and coming from a councillor's motion, and we could characterize Councillor Bradford's introduction of the Ward 19 project, pilot project, as being the same on all three counts, correct?
Through the Speaker, I would not characterize the Ward 19 pilot as having an objective of creating unique rules in a specific geography. As I said, it's meant to be a demonstration project.
So the Ward 19 pilot project changes the rules for the citywide?
No, to be clear, Councillor, The Ward 19 pilot project is a demonstration project.
I understand that it's a demonstration project.
It's not a study to review specific zoning standards or policies.
Isn't a pilot project to test specific zoning pilots in a specific geography to see if we could then apply it elsewhere? That's what a demonstration project is, correct?
Through the speaker, in this case, the pilot project is meant to apply the missing middle policies and zoning standards to a project, and as well as learn lessons related to the feasibility of development that go beyond the planning approval process. So things like the market economics, what's necessary to design the project to create livable units, the opportunities to integrate sustainability measures into the development. It's more about learning the practicalities and lessons of how to successfully implement missing middle housing types than to review specific zoning standards.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, because we want to call the question on this. Well, your mic is not on.
I just need the overhead on. One second, thank you. Waited all day. Clock's running. What's that? Thank you. I won't be very long. I just need that on. Not on there. There we go. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Speaker. And thank you, everybody, for your interest in this issue. I just want to start off by saying that I'm very proud of the number of laneway suites that I have in Ward 14. We have quite a number. I haven't been able to count the number of garden suites in Ward 14, but there are very many, and I've asked Mr. Connect to say, just tell us ward by ward, who's got what, because we haven't heard that since we've passed all of these things. So I just want to let everybody know, and there's not a question of saying no laneways, no gardens. I have a motion, actually, City Council moved a motion to have a consultation on removing the garden suite privilege from this little wee street. And I'm going to show you how little it is. These are streets. This little tiny wee street is Craven Road. It's through lots, which nobody really knew what that meant when that bylaw went through, except I guess if you're a planner, and we do have some on City Council. And then backyards that meet with no laneway between Rose and Craven. This, I asked if it was an anomaly, and Mr. Connect didn't think it was. I think it's an anomaly of a street. And I think it's an anomaly of a street because when I've asked about how many through lots are there, that means you start on Park Mountain, you go through, there's no house on the street facing the street. There's 200,000 lots in Toronto and East York, and there are only 600 through lots in the entire Toronto and East York. And 125 of those through lots are on Craven Road. It goes from the Danforth all the way to Queen. I'm not showing you the whole section. So when people learned of this, it seemed very odd. Was it a garden suite? Is it a laneway street? What kind of suite is it? What happens when it's on one of these other roads? Very complicated, turned down at the Committee of Adjustment, abandoned at the T-Lab, and there was a very big issue about what's going on here. So we had a meeting. Planning held a meeting, and I'd have to say at the meeting there were a lot of different opinions, which is great. And this is a lot of different opinions. So what this motion does is say, don't come back on the 24th of October, but please take some time and look at this through lot street, this tiny 6.1 right-of-way street, and see, are there any modifications that may or may not have to happen for the garden suite bylaw? As I said, there's only 600 lots, and I'm probably going to say there's probably only about 8 streets in all of Toronto and East York that have this same configuration. So I don't think it's asking too much. And hearing that, oh, it's only in Ward 14, and thank you, Councillor Perks, for pointing out there was a motion that came from a councillor to say do X in my ward. We have all the time we ask planners to do things in our wards, all the time. Let's just get over that red herring. And, pardon me?
The restaurant bylaws.
Oh, well, the restaurant, yeah, Councillor Perks did his restaurant bylaw on Queen Street, and that took a lot of work. So this is just saying we're extending the time. We're going to talk to the people here in this neighborhood rather than, I think, everybody from across the city that's interested there. They can have a chance to do that. But this is a community conversation for a community solution, because I think everybody believes that a garden suite is something that's in your backyard, in your garden, and it's meeting somebody else's garden. You know, people in the city of Toronto, they don't all have planning backgrounds. They don't all accredited planners. They're people that live in a neighborhood. So when I hear garden suite, what do you think? Garden. When I hear laneway suite, what do I think? Laneway. But here we have these through lots, which are very different. So I would just ask you to give us a chance in this neighborhood, the same way as you've given Councillor Bradford a chance to have his pilot project, and others, Councillor Perks, to have his restaurant bylaw, to simply have a chance to see how this all fits together for a community that kind of woke up one day and realized they're on a through lot street rather than a garden street. Thank you very much for your consideration, councillors.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Bradford to speak. I understand you have a motion.
That's right. Thanks, Madam Speaker. I have a pretty simple motion here that I hope council will support and we can do the right thing together. I'm requesting that staff no longer proceed with this review, which would actually return exclusionary zoning permissions to a single street. It puts us on that pathway. It would be precedent setting, as we heard. It's clearly not our chief planner's idea. It puts us on the path to removing housing, not adding housing. And as you heard tonight, it's a low priority when it comes to the work program of city planning. Yeah, I'm a planner, but you don't have to be a planner to understand what Councillor Fletcher is doing here. And honestly, I'm not in the room there, I'm online, but I want to tip the proverbial cap to our chief planner, Kyle there, standing in there as Gord Perks was out over the tip of his skis, trying to draw parallels between an example where I'm leading to add housing, to build a new model of housing that we can roll out across the city, and trying to equate that from a councillor's bending the knee to some NIMBY voices in our neighborhood to remove housing. It's quite remarkable. Like, if it wasn't so uncomfortable to listen to, I should be thanking you for making the case. Our chair of the Planning and Housing Committee. It's going to be great to watch a vote on this. Over the past couple of years, council's made monumental steps, I think, to exclusionary zoning. We've ended it, and that's been the case here. Really decades of work getting to that moment, but EHON, which is about expanding housing options in neighborhoods, as part of that work, we legalized 4 plexes across the city. We made a commitment to doing 6 plexes as well. Now, Councillor Myers is pushing on that as well out in Scarborough. We approved multi-tenant housing. We legalized mid-rise apartment buildings on major streets. We're working on updating our urban design guidelines, the angular plane. And we legalized laneway suites and garden suites across the city, the whole city, including Toronto Danforth. There's a lot more work that we need to do, I think, to increase housing options. And I know the staff team are working really hard on this. But this is just, this is undermining that hard work that the city planning division has done. And for those of you who've been around since 22, you know that some of these conversations are difficult. You know that staff looked at different archetypes and lots of different street configurations, and no one street is the same. And it's ridiculous to suggest that that's the case. There are always nuances. But we stood together as a council. We didn't do any of this carve-out BS that Councillor Fletcher's trying to pull tonight. And it's not about one street. This is a slippery slope.
Councillor, hello, yeah. Councillor Perks, please. Your language, yeah. BS, I'm sorry.
Oh, I apologize. I'm sorry. Sorry if I'm a little passionate about Bradford. This.
Sorry.
You want me to apologize for using the acronym
Yes,
DS?
yes, you should not be using
I
that language,
apologize.
and you should know better than that.
Sorry, rubbish, garbage, rubbish and garbage. You know, Councillor Perks is beating his chest about all the progress that we've made on the housing action plan, but he did not highlight all of the items that have been delayed. He always sets it up. He's like, I want to speak last. He doesn't want anyone to come after him to sort of point out the other side of that coin. Well, there's a lot of work that isn't getting done. There's still work that's underway on vital priorities when it comes to affordable home ownership, when it comes to student housing, when it comes to creating housing on school board lands, working on apartment infill permissions, building more housing on our avenues, doing the transition zones. There's a lot of work that is going to be needed to move the needle on the housing file. This is work that we're directing people to do to remove housing permissions. So like, let's stand together. We don't need to waste staff time on creating a dozen more staff reports because one councillor who identifies as a housing champion, aided and abetting by the planning and housing chair, want to send staff on a mission to start removing housing permissions on one street. That's not how we do it. So I'll leave it there. I hope you can support this motion. Let's do the right thing together. This is not the way to go for the city.
Councillor Pasternak.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to call the question.
Call the question. Recorded vote. Yes. Recorded vote to call the question so we can wrap up the day.
Councillor Cole, may we have your vote, please? The motion to end debate carries. The vote is 13-6.
Okay, so whose motion's first? Councillor Bradford motion first, recorded vote. Pardon? Yeah. So Councillor Bradford's amendment, recorded vote.
Councillor Pertsa, please. Motion 1 does not carry. The vote is 3-16.
Okay, on the item, recorded vote.
Councillor McKelvey, please, and Councillor Perruzza. The item carries. The vote is 17-3.
Okay. On members' motion, come on, guys, we want to finish this off. 22.6, Councillor Perks, you held the item down, reopening of an item by Councillor Holyday. Sorry, 22 point, I don't have my glasses on, 22.5.
Yeah, no, I was just waiting to see if Councillor Holyday would withdraw it because it opposes all the motions he moved on the other item, but he didn't, so I'll just vote no.
So you just release it? Yeah, I know. Okay, yeah, okay. On the item, recorded. Mike, we're going to be voting.
Councillor Perruzza, please. The item carries. The vote is 18-1.
Okay, the next item, Councillor Holyday, you held down, which is 22.8, trains not tunnels. Councillor Holyday? Okay, so on the item. Pardon? Who's got the motions? Okay.
Thank you. It's just deleting recommendation 3. And instead of asking the city manager to come up with an estimate, which he can't do, he doesn't know the specs, just give other similar data in a briefing note.
Oh, there it is on the screen. Okay. And then who else has a motion? Okay, Councillor Cole, do you want to introduce your motion?
My motion?
Okay.
Just basically also asking the province to consider, instead of building the channel, to look at buying back the 407.
Okay, so Councillor McKelvey's amendment first. On favor? Carried. Okay, recorded vote on Councillor McKelvey's amendment.
Deputy Mayor Malik, please. Councillor Fletcher and Councillor Ainsley. Sorry, Councillor Fletcher. In the affirmative, thank you. Motion 1 carries. The vote is 18-1.
Okay, on Councillor Cole's amendment, on favor? Carried. Item is amended on favor. Recorded vote. Oh, Jesus. Councillor Holyday. Like, but this, it's getting nerve-wracking now. Like, come on. Do you realize Do you realize how much paper and how much work the staff have to do every time a recorded vote?
Councillor Fletcher, your vote, please. In the affirmative, thank you. The item as amended carries. The vote is 18-2.
Okay. On the last item, I believe that Councillor Bravo has an amendment to MM 22.21. Councillor Bravo?
Yeah, thank you, Speaker. I do have a motion which I've shared with yourself as mover, and I've asked to be advance circulated. And it is to request that the Executive Director of Social Development, Finance Administration report to the Economic and Community Development Committee in the first quarter of 2025 on how municipal governments and agencies can support more positive bail outcomes and enhance community safety by reducing recidivism and addressing its root causes. My motion recognizes that the issue of violence in community is important, that the majority of victims of violence are people who are already living with other challenges like poverty in communities that are underserved by transit, with and a number of other characteristics that we need to think about. My motion attempts to answer the sort of address the number 2, 3, and 4 in the MM 22.21 by asking what is the role of municipal government in achieving those outcomes. So I hope that people can support it. Thanks.
Councillor Perks?
Yes?
You put your name up there.
I didn't intend to.
Okay. So, Councillor Pasternak, did you just call the question? Call the question?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Okay.
It was to
All right, so on the amendment, on favor, carried. Item is amended, recorded vote. Pardon? I can't hear you, sorry. Let me put...
I want to vote yes to 1 and...
Okay, so on 1 and 5, 1 and 4? 1 and 5, we'll vote on 1 and 5, recorded vote. Pardon? Yeah, let us set it up. Okay. On part 1, on favor, carried. Part 5. Okay, recorded vote. Come on, guys, let's sit down. Let's vote on this. Okay, Councillor Fletcher, recorded vote. I mean, Councillor Bravo moved the amendment, which I was fine with. Recorded vote on part 1. Yes, 1.
Councillor Fletcher, in the affirmative, thank you. Part 1 carries. The vote is 19-1.
Okay, part 5, recorded vote. guess Councillor Bravo asked for a separate vote. Part 5, recorded vote. Recommendation 5. Okay, recorded vote.
Councillor Crisante, please. Councillor Pasternak and Councillor Carroll. And Councillor Fletcher, your vote, please. In the affirmative, thank you.
Part 5 carries. The vote is 19-1.
Okay, item is amended. Pardon? Yes, I know. On the balance of the motion, all in favor? Recorded vote, recorded vote. Recorded vote. Okay, the screen's on.
Councillor Fletcher, your vote, please. In the affirmative, thank you.
The balance of the item as amended carries. The vote is 17-3.
All right. Members, before I ask for motion to enact the general bills, may I have a motion regarding the consideration on zoning bylaw and official plan amendments? Councillor Perks, would you like to move that one?
Oh, boy, would I. Speaker, I move the committee and council considered submissions in making a decision on zoning bylaw and official plan amendments.
In favor? Carried. May I have a motion to introduce the general bills? Councillor Ainsley, would you like to do that one?
That leave be granted to introduce bills 948 to 1074. No questions, please.
Shall leave be granted to introduce these bills? On favor, show of hands carried. Shall these bills be declared as bylaws and passed subject to section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006? On favor, carried. Councillor McKelvey, may I have a motion to introduce the confirmatory bills?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to introduce that leave be granted to introduce bills to confirm to the point of the introduction of this motion the proceedings of City Council Meeting 22 on October 9th and 10th, 2024.
Shall leave be granted to introduce these bills? Shall these bills be declared as bylaws and passed subject to section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006? On favor? Opposed, if any, carried. Thank you to staff. Thank you to all members of council. The meeting is adjourned.